Hey guys, Higgy Pop here. I'm gonna do a quick video because this new comic came out, the new history of the DC universe, the new history. All right, and I really enjoyed it, and it's done by Mark Waid. So I'm gonna blow through this real quick. I hope you guys learned something. All right, all right. It looks like okay, pretty cool. It's a wraparound. It's a wraparound style. All right, so I'm going to go through this because I actually learned a couple new things. It's pretty much the DC history, not everything, but there is some new characters thrown in there, and we'll start with page one. That's what we're going to do, and it starts with Barry Allen. Barry Allen, all right. He says he's retired, okay? He says, "My name is Barry Allen. Once I was the Flash, the fastest man alive. I'm retired now, but in my day, I probably saw more of the multiverse, past, present, and future than anyone who ever lived. Along the way, I've also been involved in crisis-level events that have, at times, made history a little malleable, like a story given subtle differences by multiple narrators." All right? It makes me uncomfortable. I prefer my history structured, documented. That's why, as its most traveled witness, it's my responsibility to record it. All right, so that's what we got to do, man. And here we go. He goes, in the beginning, there was the source, the infinite force of creation. Its cosmic agents, celestial beings called hands, shaped its energy into the Big Bang that we know as the dawn of time. All right? We have Perpetua. One of these beings entrusted the multiverse's three realms, matter, antimatter, and dark matter, to her sons, the Monitor, the Anti-Monitor, and the World Forager, before being banished for attempting to meddle with creation. Those losers. Okay, and then here we go. We have the Big Bang gave rise to stars, planets, and endless. 7 powerful entities who each represented the aspect of the new reality. Among them were Destiny, Death, and Dream, Lord Master of his realm, the Dreaming. There he is. And then we come over here. It says, at the heart of the creation lay the gleaming silver city, fortress for angels of heaven. There Lucifer, Morningstar, lost a war in heaven against his brother, the Archangel Michael. Lucifer and his soldiers were cast into hell, where they were reborn as the first demons. Okay, and here we go. There's the Spectre. One of the fallen agents, Galad, was transformed by Michael into the instrument of God's wrath, today known as Eclipso. Yeah, that's Eclipso. Later stripped of his rank by his successor, the fallen angel Astar. Acting God's instrument of vengeance, Astar is known better as the Spectre. That's him. Shortly thereafter, warring factions and immortal forces, the Lords of Order and Chaos, the first sentimental races in the universe, were born on the planet Celia and would continually play a vital part in shaping the universe. Yeah, they would. All right, is everyone learning? Everyone learning. All right. Here they are. In time, a world called Maltus, the first humanoids evolved. They resettled the planet Oa, considered to be center of the cosmos. Mastering immortality, they renamed themselves the Guardians of the Universe. They set out to impose order on our still cooling macrocosm. There they are, the Manhunters. The Guardians' first acts were to seal the chaotic magic of the universe within a construct called the Starheart, and to deploy the android law enforcement army known as the Manhunters. And unable to deal effectively with moral complexity, the Manhunters were eventually replaced with Green Lantern Corps, who funneled the green light of the willpower from Oa's central power battery into their energized rings. There they all are. And all was not harmonious on Oa, however. A merciless splinter group who called themselves the Controllers charted their own destiny, establishing a much harsher version of the Lantern Corps, the Dark Stars. And then down here, the Malthusians splintered further along gender lines into females, designed to Zamorans, left Oa to create their own society. Women. And here we go. There we go, the new gods. Long before Earth's creation, there came a time when the old gods of Urgrund died in the sprawling war that destroyed their world. It remains fissioned into the planets New Genesis and Apocalypse in a realm outside the multiverse referred to as the Fourth World. There they are. All right. And the source granted its residents a form of godhood. Most notable among them were the New Genesis Highfather, Isaiah, and his son Scott Free. Good old Scott Free. All right? And Darkseid, malevolent ruler of Apocalypse and wielder of the cruelty, destructive Omega Force, his son Orion and Kalibak, the Apocalyptian warrior Big Barda, and the Black Racer, an elemental force in the human form who brings death to all he touches. Black Racer. And then, as the Earth started to cool, the life began. Yggdrasil, the World Tree, achieved the sentience and birthed both the Parliament of the Trees and the Green, the force that binds all plant life. In turn, the Parliament created a race of flora elementals that would forevermore protect Earth. Swamp Things. And here we go, there's Orion. Soon after, Atlantis arose as Earth's earliest civilization. Although magic was the dominant means of power throughout the continent, its intellectuals developed highly advanced technological wonders at a time when the first Homo sapiens had yet to discover fire. Atlantis' champion was Lord High Mage Aharon, also known as Orion, a follower of the Lords of Order. During his long reign, Orion would sacrifice much of his power to end the Ice Age and to contain his dark twin, the mortal enemy Garndanith. We are continuing to learn at Higgy University. Here we go. There's Eclipso. Consequently, despite valiant efforts, Orion was later unable to prevent the Great Deluge caused by Eclipso that destroyed most of Earth's surface, including Atlantis. The survivors were able to preserve its sole remaining kingdoms, Poseidus and Tritonus, as they sank into the ocean's floor. That must be the Great Flood, all right? Over the ensuing millennia, the Poseidonists maintained their two-legged forms while the Tritonians evolved into mer people. Still another offshoot of the Atlanteans fled to the extra-dimensional realm Scatterus, where they established the city Shambhala. That's where our friend Warlord resides. All right. Foremost amongst humanity's primitives was young Anthro, who defended the Bear tribe from raids by marauding cavemen, including Vandal Savage and his Blood tribe. Awesome. Anthro. See, they cover everybody. It was the latter who benefited when a radioactive meteor crashed down, imbuing several Cro-Magnus, including Savage and his siblings, and Bear tribe leader Klarn, with different forms of immortality. Savage, imperious to immortal harm, would exist perpetually through history, while Klarn would, upon dying, immediately reincarnate in a different body, making him the immortal man. Yes. And when another Neanderthal man murdered his pregnant wife, her soul and that of her unborn child were brought into the well souls by their patron goddess, who collected over the centuries the spirits of other women unjustly slain by men, reincarnated anew as they emerged from the well. These women called themselves the Amazons, and with Hippolyta as their queen, founded a society that eventually took root on the island Themyscira. There you go. Wonder Woman. All right, we're rocking and rolling. Here we go. The Rock of Eternity, a dimensional portal through space-time, was built by powerful sorcerers known as the Circle of Eternity as their stronghold to contain the 7 deadly sins. Mamaragan, an aboriginal deity of thunder, joined the circle under the horrific wizard. The wizard used his abilities to endow slave Teth Adam and the abilities of the African pantheon of gods, renaming him the Mighty Adam. But power corrupts, and in this instance twisted Teth into Black Adam, who murdered the circle. The wizard was its sole survivor. Black Adam. He's the best. By then, the start of modern civilization as we know it had already begun in Sumer, in the ancient Near East, with the help of a time traveler who, from our era, an agent of the order named Nabu the Wise, refashioned this extraterrestrial artifact into the scarab of Ka-Athri in a failed attempt to break the power of Vandal Savage. Badly wounded, Nabu put himself in a healing trance inside the pyramid of Chaldea, Valley of Ur. All right. Zadafa, princess of an ancient kingdom of the African island of Madagascar, died and would later be reincarnated as Nubia of the Amazons. There she is. And in the Himalayas, the Asian goddess Ramakrishna created the hidden paradise of Nanda Parbat, a place of healing and spiritual enlightenment. There you go. Here we go. Qatar Deathbringer and Shire served an ancient force of evil before being redeemed and reincarnated as humans. Prince Khafu, Mat, Qatar, and Shire of the planet Thanagar. Upon their death, they began a millennia-long chain of reincarnations across many worlds. In the 6th century AD was a significant time both in history and in the heroic legend. The magician Merlin drafted his Eternity Book, an immeasurably powerful magic tome, while King Arthur assembled his Knights of the Round Table. Awesome. Here we go with the Shining Knight. Merlin, rescued from a trap by the knight Sir Justin, rewarded Justin by enchanting his armor and the sword and giving wings to his steed, Victory. Shortly thereafter, as the Shining Knight, Justin's final battle left him entombed in ice for the next 14 centuries. Not long after, Merlin anointed a second Shining Knight who championed the people of their kingdom. All right. And there she is. Nimue Nwunda, Morgan Le Fay, and Vienne, the Lady of the Lake, were sisters descended from the Elder Folk, an offshoot of an Atlantean race later known as the Homo Magi. Nimue took the name Madame Xanadu. Xanadu! In the last days of Camelot, to save the Eternity Book from Le Fay, Merlin bound his half-brother, the demon Etrigan, to a simple peasant named Jason Blood, who became the book's immortal guardian, the demon. And over here is one of my favorites. It is humanity was becoming a race of explorers. The Viking prince sailed the unknown seas in search of the high adventure. Years later, Vikings exploring America rescued Arak, son of thunder, and brought him back to Europe, where he became a swashbuckling adventurer. There's Arak, yeah! Viking prince. And over here, we have the Demon Knights assembled a crew of warriors defending early Europe. Among them were Etrigan, Madame Xanadu, Vandal Savage, Shining Knight, Horsewoman, Al-Jabur, and the Themyscirian exile Exoristos. All right, those guys. There's Vandal, there's the Demon, and there is Metron. The X element was discovered on Apocalypse. Metron, keeper of all knowledge, used it to create his space-time spanning Mobius chair and the teleportation system known as the Boom Tube. Boom! All right. Moving on. Learning at a rapid pace. All right, here we go. In the deserts of Arabia, a child whose name has been lost to the ages was born of nomads. Becoming a physician, he discovered the Lazarus pits, which could prolong life and resurrect the dead. Over the centuries, he built a criminal extremism organization that adopted the name Ra's al Ghul, the Arabic for the demon's head. Within the demon cabal were several factions, most notably the League of Assassins, as well as the splinter group called the League of Shadows. There he is. Around this time, deep within the African Vate, a band of gorillas was hit by an extra-dimensional power that granted them a higher form of sentience. The now hyper-intelligent apes built a futuristic habitat called Gorilla City and kept it hidden for centuries within their psychic powers. Fun. Jean and Justin Valor, the heroic black pirate and son, sailed the seas, as did the Caribbean's Captain Fear. And this guy, Andrew Bennett, a minor English nobleman, was cursed with the vampirism, yet for the next 400 years defended humanity against the cult of Blood Red Moon. That's that guy there. And in the dark part of London, Richard Swift endured a ritual that caused him to absorb the mysterious and magical shadow power. Under several aliases, including the Shade, he traveled the world, sometimes as a hero, sometimes as a villain. And here's old Frankie, that's the Shade. And Frankenstein's monster, who later took the name of his creator, escaped captivity. Decades later, his nomadic existence eventually led him to join the Superhuman Advanced Defense Executive. Good old Frankie. Good old Zipperneck. All right. That's the Shade. He battled Starman and Hawkman. Oh, yeah. And here's my fave. Over here we have, in America, during a Revolutionary War and its aftermath, the legends of Tomahawk, his partners, Dan Hunter and Miss Liberty, and Tomahawk's Rangers rang inspirationally across the frontier. There they are. Miss Liberty, there's Tomahawk. Oh, yeah. And down here, we have Max Mercury. A Terranian alien crash-landed on a plantation in the American South in the early 1800s. Stranded but gifted with great powers and a slowed aging process, he kept his true identity a secret for centuries before becoming the hero known as Icon. There he is. Where is he? Where's Icon? Here he is right here. As a little baby. Baby Icon. And over here we have Max Crandall was granted superhuman speed by a Blackfoot shaman. He used his skills to protect natives and settlers from one another as Ahiwota, or as he was better known, Windrunner, today called Max Mercury. Max Mercury. And here we go. Wild West. As pioneers pushed to claim homesteads across the western United States, might too often made right when backed by evil intent. And a Colt 45, fortunately, this Wild West was awash with gunslingers who fought for law and order. We have Jonah Hex, Batlash, Johnny Thunder, Texas Ranger Jack Woods, El Diablo, the Wyoming Kid, Pow Wow Smith, Golden Arrow, and we have Nighthawk, Cinnamon, and Kihowate, which is Scalp Hunter, one of my faves. Awesome. Oh, yeah, here we go, baby. Digging deeper. Enemy Ace, da! No amount of heroic spirit, however, could have prevented World War I. During this brutal conflict, one pilot stood out from all others due to his unimpeachable sense of honor. Germany's Reichsmitter Hans von Hammer, more commonly known as Enemy Ace, da! And then we have, following the war, a former spy turned big game hunter earned fame as Congo Bill, Glenn Morgan, in his adopted home of Africa. There's Congo Bill, the golden gorilla. And over here we have, in an effort to kidnap and control Death in the Endless, with wealthy Roderick Burgess instead captured Dream, stripping him of several artifacts that would become significant in heroic legend. And in the Valley of Ur, the archaeologist Sven Nelson was accidentally killed while awakening the slumbering Nabu. In the penance, Nabu made Sven's son, Kent Nelson, his disciple in magical arts. And over here we have Osgood Armsby, an orphan raised in the mystic cult unknown as the Seven, began his career in the 1930s as a supernatural detective under the name Dr. Richard Occult. In one early adventure, Occult donned a red suit and cloak, making him the century's first superhero. Boom. And over here we have, throughout the early 1940s, others quickly followed in a cascade of costumes and masks, plagued by cryptic nightmares, alluding to the captive dream. New York playboy Wesley Dodds became the Sandman. There's Wesley. Nice, with his gas gun. And here's the Blackhawks. Dodds also bankrolled the resistance efforts of Poland's Janos, Blackhawk Prashkaska, and his Blackhawk Squadron, who fought the rising Nazi menace, as did teenage aviator Hop Harrigan. There you go. There's Starman. Ted Knight, whose gravity rod harnessed the powers of the celestial firmament, became Starman. Jim Barr took flight as Bullet Man. There's Starman and Bullet Man. Here we have Joan Dale transformed into Miss America. And Alan Armstrong fought Saboteuse as Spy Smasher. And Dan Garrett, wielding the scarab of Kahafri, became the first of several crime fighters to bear the name Blue Beetle. Boom. All right. Here we have Ted Roosevelt. All right. Here we go. In the 1940, at the suggestion of President Roosevelt, several new heroes along the Sandman joined together to create the Justice Society of America. Bodybuilder Al Pratt used his strength and later super strength as the Atom. Jay Garrick was the Flash, and then fastest man alive. Alan Scott forging a ring from the Starheart lamp to become the Green Lantern. Rex Tyler, using a strength-enhancing drug called Miraclo, took on the name Our Man. Kent Nelson became the eldritch sorcerer Dr. Fate. Boom. Joining them were murdered police detective Jim Corrigan, who was resurrected as the Spectre to serve as his earliest host. And then we have Kufu Kantar, who was newly reincarnated as Hawkman alongside Shara, who soon became Hawkgirl. And in time, Johnny Thunder, who spoke the magic word Seiyu to command the Thunderbolt Genie. There he is. And over here we have alongside such heroes as Dr. Midnight, Mr. Terrific, Amazing Man, and Wildcat, the JSA battled not only to access a menace, but a rising tide of supervillains on both the war front and American soil. Queen Hippolyta joined them in the guise of Wonder Woman. Brutes like Solomon Grundy and the Nazi superhuman Baron Blitzkrieg, magic wielders like Wotan, Red Lantern, and Johnny Sorrow, and masterminds as Brainwave were only some of the many evildoers who threatened Earth's safety. There they are. Here we go. We got a big splash page here. And the Society wasn't America's only band of heroes. The Crimson Avenger and Wing, a time-displaced Green Arrow, and Speedy, the reawakened Shining Knight, the Vigilante, the Star-Spangled Kid, and Stripesy, united as 7 soldiers of victory that disappeared without a trace shortly after the wars and during their battle with a villain known as Nebula Man, which resettled in the death of Wing, only to resurface decades later, unaged by time. There they all are. This is all new heroes. Some new, some newly created, but some are just rewritten in. Also, time lost and forgotten for years were many, many costume assistants and sidekicks abducted throughout the years by the evil Childminder. Only recently have they and their contributions been returned to time and memory. There's Airwave playing a big part in the Justice League Unlimited. There's Cherry Bomb, Robbie the Robot Dog, Jay Garrick of the Boom, Quiz Kid, which is, that's a new one. John Henry Jr., Sparky Pinky. All right. And we have government-sponsored heroes battle for democracy to the Allied troops in the European theater. Project M was better known as the original Creature Commandos. Wolfman Warren Griffith, Lucky Taylor, Vampire Vincent Velcro, Dr. Medusa, and G.I. Robot. Boom. And continuing on, we have, meanwhile, on the home front, solo heroes like Manhunter, the Guardian, and Sargon the Sorcerer fought for justice. There they are. There we go. One of my faves. Uncle Sam and Hourman, however, elected to pull together a team of doomed attempt to turn back the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. Together, Neon, the Unknown, Invisible, Justice Magno, Miss America, and Red Torpedo were freedom fighters. And though they were badly defeated, Uncle Sam was undeterred, soon assembling a second, more successful incarnation of the team, consisting of Dollman, the Human Bomb, the Ray, Uncle Sam, Black Condor, and Phantom Lady. And we have, in the wake of Pearl Harbor, the Justice Society's battle with Perdigaton triggered the creation of the adjunct group, the All-Star Squadron. Yes. Founding members of the All-Stars, including several JSA members as well as Liberty Bell, Robot Man, the Johnny Quick. Despite their might, however, the war lingered. Axis-controlled territories were protected by an anti-magic spell created by the Spear of Destiny and the Holy Grail. Not long after the debut, Nazis killed TNT, leaving his partner Dynamite to join the young All-Stars with fellow teen heroes Fury, Iron Monroe, Flying Fox, Tsunami, and Neptune Perkins. Yes, good stuff. And we have the Unknown Soldier. Here we go. Costume crime fighters were hardly the only heroes on the World War rampaging through Europe and beyond. The Unknown Soldier used his disguises, skills, and infiltrate enemy territory. And we have Sergeant Frank Rock and Easy Company were deservedly the most famous of the America's fighting soldiers. Young spy known as Mademoiselle Marie was a leader of the French Resistance.
Ben Hunter led the Hellcats, a special forces group of hardened criminals. Ulysses Hazard was a one-man commando unit codenamed Gravedigger. And we have Captain Rip Carter led 4 resourceful boys, Alfie Twidget, Andre Chevard, Daniel Brooklyn Turpin, and Jean Hassan against Nazi tyranny as the boy commandos. And we have, guarded by the ghost of the namesake Civil War ancestor Sergeant Jeb Stewart and his crew, Arch Asher, Rick Rollins, and Slim Stryker commanded the haunted tank. And we have, right there, boys, Allied High Command formed a special detached service unit codenamed the Losers, consisting of Captain William Storm, Lieutenant Johnny Cloud, Norwegian resistance fighter Ona Thomsen, Gunner, Sarge, and Pooch. Yes. Here we have, there's Dr. Fate, there's some magic doers. Back home, the original Mr. Miracle assembled the Justice Society Dark, a conclave of magic users, including Dr. Occult, Dr. Fate, the Sorcerer Zatara, the Blue Beetle. Facing a threat that would last decades, they used magic to permanently slow their aging. Captain Richard Montgomery Flagg was asked to command the Army's most expendable soldiers as Squadron S, which became nicknamed the Suicide Squadron, among the first to explore the mysterious Dinosaur Island. Later, Flagg's son, Richard Roger Flagg, headed its next iteration, Task Force X, the Suicide Squad. Then, post-war martial artist Dana Drake joined the Justice Society as Black Canary. Disbanded under government pressure, unbeknownst to the public, a good number of its members subsequently undertook missions in secret, culminating in adventure in another realm, missions that extended their lifespans greatly at the cost of missing out on decades of existence on Earth. That's when they needed to unmask, and they didn't. Here we go, one of my faves. In their place, a short-lived Justice Alliance formed under the leadership of the mutant Captain Comet. Despite their valor, the team of Prince Raman, Automan, Tiger Man, and Congarilla was unable to fill the void left by the JSA. Tiger Man. Here we go, almost done. And decades after the Justice Society vanished, the U.S. government reached out in desperation to several accomplished scientists, the financiers, in hopes of actively creating new heroes. Amongst those willing to participate were Dr. Niles Calder, Will Magnus, Professor Martin Stein, and Simon Stagg. Their arrangements will retroactively be deemed the Supermen Project, Phase 1, and its results would be significant in the years to come. All right. There we go. In a small laboratory in Colorado, Dr. Mark Saul Ertl tested his teleportation ray for the first time. Inadvertently, he wrenched through space and time a Martian named Jean Jones. And while light years from Earth, a distant planet called Krypton exploded, a tiny escape craft bearing a very special infant passenger. End of Book 1. Yeah.
Nice. That's enough for today. My lord, my brain hurts. All right, guys. I hope you liked that. That was fun. I enjoyed it. Learned a little bit new. You know, it's got a little new twist to it. Hey, you got to roll with the punches, baby. Read your comics. They make you smart.